Welcome back to Imola as we get ready for another glorious day of Formula 2 action. Imola's unusual in that it runs anti-clockwise, taking in 19 turns along its 3.1 miles of tarmac. 9 of those are right-handers, with the remaining 10 as left-handers. Now, the F2 drivers here today need to keep in mind the elevation. Pay attention to turn 7. A slow exit from here will lose a driver a lot of time as they struggle to accelerate uphill. As we await the start of another hugely anticipated Formula 2 race, I'm joined again by Davide Valsecchi. Davide, as a former GP2 champion, can we get some insight to what is running through these young drivers' heads as they sit out on the grid?
Ciao Alex, it's a pleasure to be here. There are nervy moments, there is no doubts about that. Mental strength is the key to remaining calm and focusing on the upcoming race. Formula 2 is so competitive and all of these drivers knows that they are going to be pushing each other all of the way. In this sport, you have to be able to control your nerves.
So before the off, let's remind ourselves of yesterday's results with a look at the starting grid. An immense lap from Bent Fiscal yesterday puts him in pole position, and it's Richard Verschoor in P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Schwartzman, Zendelli, Bent Fiscal and Piastri, Lawson, Pourchaire, Vips, Alessio Deleda, Beckman, Deruvula, Daniel Ticktum and Armstrong, Joe, Sato, Aitken and Felipe Dragovic, Nissani, Samaya, Lungard and Ralph Boschong completes the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and today I'm back with some F2 action. It's been a while since the sprint race here at Imola, but we're here today with the feature race, slightly longer, few laps longer, and today of course at Imola at Ferrari's home circuit, and we're on the Italian team Prima, so technically their home race. Of course, last video was a sprint race, plenty of action and overtakes in that one. If you haven't watched that, then I will click off this video, watch that first, then go to this. But wow, it was an exciting sprint race, I have to say. You know, I wasn't sure how it would go around Bahrain with these F2 cars, but it went fantastically well. Plenty of overtakes, plenty of action. Sadly, a few drivers suffering from mechanical failures. We struggled, but still managed to take points, and also points for fastest lap. But we will, of course, be starting P3 today, with the results from quali not being reversed for the feature race. That's just for the sprint race with the top 10. In terms of the race strategy, before we have a look at the grid, certainly not going to want to do a two-stopper here in 18 laps. That's a bit of a waste, especially around a track with low tyre wear. If we were to remove that stint, and wait, actually, let's go here, and then we go medium, maybe? It's a bit of a difficult one here. It won't let me adjust it. But, yeah, I don't know if medium, soft, or soft, medium. I think we'll just go with medium, soft in this situation. That's probably the better option. The other cars are going to be on it. You know, you don't want to be so quick at the start and getting held up with the other cars, and then a sitting duck at the end of the race in terms of lap times. But we are going to go medium to soft. That lovely set of softs there will take us to the end of the Grand Prix. 11 laps on the mediums, 7 laps on the softs, with a total of 18 laps here at the lovely Imola circuit. Let's have a quick rundown of the grid. The grid then, and everyone will start on the mediums. I can confirm that. Your pole sitter, Bent Fiscal, the two Dutch drivers, Fiscal and Verschoor, P1 and 2. Fiscal certainly looking like he could be fighting us for the championship. Verschoor, bad in Bahrain in terms of his results, but hopefully be wanting to come back from that and get into the fight. Zendelli, after a DNF last time, he'll be wanting a good result here today. Starting P4, he could cause us some problems. Fittipaldi, P5, he's had a decent start to the season. He needs to just get some more points if he wants to get into the title fight. And my teammate Oscar Piastri certainly isn't in the title fight at the moment. He's starting to drop a little bit away, so they'll need to try and move up from P6, hopefully, you know, we'll pretty comfortably probably win the constructors, but I do think, he's got a bit of work to do if he wants to get back in the drivers. Liam Lawson up next, P7. He's had solid results so far. So has Thieu Pouchet, certainly taken a bit more from the sprint races than the feature races. Hopefully, he might be able to take something out of this one today in the feature race. Of course, it would be really nice if Thieu could get into the title fight, the young Frenchman. Yuri Vips, P9 starting on there. He'll be looking for another solid result with last time's winner, Alessio Delayed of HWA Race Lab. Of course, means he starts P10. He'll be looking to stay there to take some points by the end of it. Then you've got David Beckman just out the top 10 in P11. He's got some work to do, considering I think he really does have some pace for points, but just hasn't got the results. The Carlins, P12 and 13, finally in a good position for once. They've been struggling at the last few races, but 12th and 13th today. Hopefully they'll be able to get into a bit of a fight. I keep saying that for everyone, but it's such a competitive grid that anything can happen. Marcus Armstrong, P14 for Dams. Not the best, really, for him, not the worst. Wan Yu Zhou, bit of an improvement on his recent positions to start the race, but still not really good enough in P15 if he wants to actually take some points. Sato, P16 for Trident, one of his best starts this season. Jack Aitken still struggling down there at P17. Djugovic, a sky-high P18 for him, still very disappointing for Univirtuosity Racing. Nissany down in P20. Then Samaya Lundgaard struggling down in P21. And then, as we're starting to see, Ralph Boström rounds out the grid for Campos Racing. Those are your 22 drivers. Everyone's on the mediums. It's time to get into some F2 action. Here we go then at Imola for the feature race. Favorites, they're out and away we go here. It's not the best of starts actually for us, as Vershaw's teammate Zendelli trying to get alongside us as we head down to the first corner. Our teammate Piastri going nicely as we begin this one, as we get a little bit pear-shaped through there, and it's going to be us staying in P3 ahead of Zendelli. Fittipaldi P5 ahead of my teammate. No real surprises off the start so far towards the front end of things, as that's us getting a bit slippery and a bit difficult, and there's Zendelli trying to stick his nose into that small gap at the hairpin. It's not a great start, it's not a bad start here. We're still in P3, and that really was the target. I feel like we don't really have the pace to be here. It's a very tasty lap in quali, but we are really struggling around here at Imola, and it's certainly going to be difficult to get a good result, and you can see why. These F2 cars are so difficult to handle through corners like Acra Minerali. And then this corner over here, we know the curbs are vicious. You've got to take it out wide because it's so easy to lose the car in entry, but we've got to try and push back up to Verschoor within a second for when DRS is enabled. As always then, the race replay of the start. Lap number 1, always plenty of action. We were starting P3. It wasn't the best of starts for ourselves. Rem Zendelli alongside. It was a decent start for my teammate back there, Enzo Fittipaldi, looking to try and challenge him a bit into turn 1 down the inside line. There's Fittipaldi going down the inside line. We went down the inside line of one of the two MP Motorsport cars. Fought it out with them. Plenty of shuffling of the order off the start. Lawson ahead of Pouchet. We're in P3, a decent start for us. Fittipaldi, P5, ahead of my teammate, Piastri, who sits in P6. And there's some side-by-side action behind Wan Yu Zhou. Down Tictum, fighting there. Zhou comes out on top. He's sandwiched between the two Carlin cars, as then he gets back ahead of them. Plenty of action back there, and now side-by-side between Yuri Vips, I do believe, and maybe Thieu Pouchet. As we head up here, we take quite a wide line. And that's Liam Lawson and Oscar Piastri, Lawson ahead of my teammate, Piastri, down at P7. Bit of a disappointing start for him. He's got a bit of work to do because he's starting to drop away in the championship if he can't get some good results in. Well, we're heading on to lap number 2 here. Viscal leads Verschoor and ourselves. Starting to get a bit further away, got a bit of a better exit than us off the final corner, and that has helped them get a little bit further in front. This track so slippery round here. I'd hate to know what it's like in F2 cars in the wet. I can sort of see why they don't normally go here, because the curbs just seems to have auto turn on them. We go quickest in sector 1, That's not where we're struggling though. We really are struggling a bit in Sector 2. Likes of Acqua Minerale. You see we struggled at the hairpin there. Zendelli's catching back up to us, but Fittipaldi doesn't seem to quite have the pace. So thankfully for us, he is dropping away with a train number 3 here. Of course, the lap that DRS gets enabled. It will be available next time down the main straight. We just went quickest last lap. I'll tell you, that's nice, isn't it? And we've gone quickest again in the first sector. Struggling, though, in the middle sector. That is our weakness at the moment. Zendelli, not exactly right, putting a lot of pressures on us at the moment, as Verschoor begins to drop away from Viscal, who might have taken pole in quali, but looks like he's about to take all the points for this one in terms of positioning. We're forced to not take Acqua Minerale. It's turning into autospin.com, but at the end of this lap, I can tell you, DRS will be available, as we've just absolutely sent it into the wall. Don't think we've got front wing damage. Will we get close enough for DRS though? That is of course the question that needs to be answered as we head down here. Will we get DRS, or will Verschoor be able to have a little nibble maybe at the back, or Viscal? And for the first time in this race, it will be DRS to push us along in this one. A field that is pretty much a long string at the moment, not really spreading out as in front. Verschoor's going to get close to Viscal, but nowhere near close enough, as we take a little bit of a evasive action there. I broke way too late, rode over there, but didn't gain a lasting advantage. Of course, remaining about 8/10 behind Richard Verschoor and Viscal. We've got to keep pushing, but try not to make mistakes like we made there in Sector 1. I really should have had this lap. This lap should be invalidated because of that, but that doesn't really work in races. You either get a penalty or you don't. Well, we've been going nicely once again. Viscal goes quickest, Verschoor goes quicker, and then we go even quicker. The three of us gliding away from Zendelli now. It's becoming a 3-horse race. We aren't actually managing to catch up to Verschoor that much because he's got DRS too. It's becoming quite a tray. What we want is a battle between Verschoor and Viscal, so we can get right onto the back of them and then maybe be able to go for an overtake. But this section, I can tell you, very difficult in these F2 cars. Well, rounding out lap number 5, and we're a lot closer than we were at the start of it. 2/10 to Richard Verschoor, but we can't quite get there because there's no ERS to use in these F2 cars. He's getting the DRS from Viscal, who he closes up to by the end of the straight, and we've got a mini train going on here, and quite a fast mini train to say that. Of course, Zendelli's pretty much dropped onto the back of Fittipaldi now. He doesn't have DRS on us, and he is leading the rest of the field. It's just, though, a 3-man battle at the moment for the win, and Viscal is just sat there at the front of it, getting away from Verschoor each lap far enough to then not lose the position when he gets clawed in, of course, at the end of the lap, when he doesn't have DRS and Richard Verschoor does. Well, we are on lap number 7 here and edging towards the halfway point of this race. We can't get close to Verschoor down the straight because he has DRS, we have DRS. The only one who doesn't have it is Viscal, who's consistently gaining nearly a second on Verschoor in the middle and final sectors, but then losing all of that because Verschoor stays just within a whole second and negates the whole gap down the straight, but isn't close enough to go for a move. It's just repetitive at the moment. Zendelli 1.6 seconds off, and that's probably because we're in a bit of a long train that isn't exactly flying along. We need to just try and get as close to Verschoor as we can out the final corner, get a better run, and an overtake might, and I say might, be a possibility, but with exits like that off Acqua Minerale, it's not looking likely. We are on lap number 8 out of 18 at the moment. The last couple of laps, we've been trying to catch back up to Verschoor. Nearly at the start of this lap, we were nearly a whole second behind by the end of the main straight. He got a great run out of there, but this lap, we are a lot closer to him. He's still going to have DRS from Ben Viscal, but is a long way behind this lap. We're catching by barely nothing here. It's not going to help us, but there might be a move on. Is there down the inside line? Richard Verschoor. We're going to get the move done, Didn't think we would be able to. There's the move on Vershaw. That's P2.
That brings you up a place.
Absolutely lovely. The train, led by Zendelli with Fittipaldi, P5. Further back has dropped to 3 seconds. But Viscal, a whole second in front. We want to be in his DRS, unless we're not going to be able to stay ahead of Vershaw. And we don't want to have to battle next lap, because that'll throw us further away from Viscal and potentially take a race win out of the equation entirely. We don't want to keep running wide there, because that's going to lose a teeny bit of time.
We're approaching the pit window. You'll be on the softs.
Well then, some of the drivers are pitting. I think just one actually at the moment. We have just gone quickest last lap.
On the car behind.
And behind, Richard Vershaw, I think might have got a bit of DRS, but he is now just over 1 second behind. He's dropping away, and that could be pretty much him out of the equation to fight for the win. But if he does try and undercut both of us, depends who's coming in this lap. Coming in at the end of lap number 9, I didn't think was going to happen, but some drivers wanting to get the most out of their softs when we come in is possibly going to be a call, depending on when Viscal comes in. You know, I don't want to stay out too much longer than him, because you don't want to drop too far back. You want the advantage on the softs, but you need to end up being in his DRS, so that you stand a chance of an overtake, which is always nice. But we want to stay in within his DRS, but as we've just done there, not drop back to Richard Vershaw. We don't want to bring him back into the equation. We want to try and get him out the DRS, so we can cancel it down and make it a 2-horse fight for the win, because we're really getting away of the other train. Well, a bit of news here. Viscal and Vershaw into the pits, along with my teammate Oscar Piastri. But that is very interesting here. Very, very interesting as we get a bit sideways out of turn 1. Both Viscal, both Vershaw are in, and I thought, well, I can either stay P2 or risk dropping down to P3. Maybe, though, have better tyres at the end of the race. We've stayed out on a set of mediums that are actually pretty alright at the moment. By having that DRS, there's a good chance that we can stay P2 and have a bit fresher tyres. I want to try something out the box. It's what you got to do in these races, you know, to try and get past Viscal, because if we don't have DRS, he is the quicker driver, I think, really, in this one. I think it's him, then us, then Vershaw in the battle. We're trying something different here. Fittipaldi moves up to P2 with Yori Vips just behind him. Dan Ticktum, I'm sure, would very much so like to stay there till the end of the race as we absolutely launch our car over the curbs. Nearly flirt with the barrier. We don't do that. We're dropping a bit back to Fittipaldi. I don't have any tunnel vision at the moment. There aren't any cars in front to help me out, and it isn't really helping us at the moment. It's going to be all about the exit off this corner. Hopefully, we can still be in a competitive position by the end of this lap. As you can see now, they're ending Sector 2 are the other cars, and there we go. Bit of a slower pit stop in F2. And that's 5.7. But no! Oh no, we gotta wait! We gotta wait! That is so costly! So costly! And that could, and I think it will, cost us P3. Here we go. We're gonna be forcing it out the pit straight. But it's gonna cost us P3, I think, here. What a shame. As expected, Viscal. We might even lose out to Zendelli here. We're going to lose out to Zendelli, are we? And we've lost P3. Well, we've dropped down 2 positions because of that. It didn't help in the pits. What happened, of course, we've dropped 3.6, a tactical mistake. We've dropped away from Vershaw, and now we're fighting to get to Zendelli if we'd like a podium here. We've been held up, and then it's costly. It is very costly. Had our pit box been at the end of the pit lane, we wouldn't have had a single problem here. But Lawson behind versus Fittipaldi, those two are going to fight. And I think Lawson should just stay in front. Fittipaldi's only got a very small overlap there. But what a shame, we're down to P4. Our focus is now to chase down Larim, who sits in front to get back on the podium where we started. Well, now that everyone's on the softs, Vershaw has gone quickest. He's chasing down the lovely Bent Viscal as we send it down the inside line into the first corner on Larim Zendelli. That is a place up the order. Someone's off. And I don't know who that is. I think it might be one of the ART cars. That's Poucher, I do believe. Ah, young Theo's off the track. He's back going. We'll have to see whether that was like a spin. I think it will have been. Ah, what a shame for him in this one. We're back up on the podium. But if we want to get back to P2, that is a big gap to negate. But he's out the session. Is it a mechanical? Or is it a spin and he's then crashed again? Something mysterious, a real shame for Theo, the Frenchman. But we've got a lot of catching to do to Vershaw, and I doubt we're going to do it. Might have settled into P3 here, as a little bit of a look behind from Larim Zendelli. You can see his teammate, Richard Vershaw, quite a way in front. We're going to struggle to get back to where we were before the pit stops. A tactical mistake, and it's cost us. Well, I have to say, Poucher's been going pretty decently at the moment. You know, he's P7, sitting there quite nicely as we head into the first corner. And oh, he's lost it, he's round. Oh, what a shame. Poucher's round. Hopefully he can get back on the track. He was running in the points in P7. It could have been a good result. Now he gets back going. Oh, what a shame. That's P22. He's back going, though. And now hopefully he can start to get going again. But going quite slowly. He's pulling over. Oh, it's a mechanical failure too. A spin and a mechanical failure. What a shame for Poucher out the race. Well, a little refresh of the order after the pit stops. It's Bent Viscal, the Dutchman, alongside his fellow countryman Richard Vershaw. They're P1 and 2. We've dropped down to P3. Behind us, of course, we've got the train of Zendelli, Lawson, Fittipaldi, my teammate Oscar Piastri, still P7, with Armstrong at P8. Then further back, we have Yuri Vips, sat there in P9 in the points with Deleda, who won the sprint race, sitting there in P10. Then you got Beckman just outside the two Carlins, Roy Nissany, Jack Aitken. As we head further down the order, you've got the two Univertosi racing cars with Felipe Drugovic and Guan Yu Zhou. Zhou once again struggling in that lovely Alpine livery. He's got quite a bit of work to do here, does Guan Yu. He needs to be getting some points, unless he's pretty much out of it. I thought he'd be fighting maybe the championship, but he certainly isn't. Sato, P18. Samaya, Boschung, Lungard round out the field. That is on lap 14. Well, Vershaw has dropped away from Viscal, the two Dutch drivers, still P1 and 2. But it seems that Viscal is staying 4 seconds ahead of us-ish. And then Vershaw is coming to party with me. We've had a decent lap. We've fluffed up a little bit. We, however, do go quickest. 1 minute 29. 3.99. We need to push to Vershaw. We've got to keep it up, but keep tyre wear down. Nearly got as much tyre wear as we had on the mediums earlier in the race. I've just realised that, you know, we've really been pushing. I haven't looked at that. We've really been pushing, and we've taken a lot out of the tyres, so we might start to actually drop away from Vershaw and back towards Zendelli, who might not have been trying to tear his into 2,000 odd small bits of rubber, which we seem to have been successfully doing, and it's not something we want to succeed at, as we're starting to struggle a little bit now. Well, we've certainly been putting some decent laps in, and going pretty nicely now. We're on the 16th out of 18th lap. At the end of this one, we will have 2 laps left. We'll also have DRS on Vershaw. Despite our tyres starting to go off, we still are getting some decent pace here. I would expect maybe Viscal to be going for a fastest lap later on in this one on lower fuel. But as we come to the end of the lap, we take some DRS. We don't go quicker by barely anything. We're going to get closer to Vershaw. Closer, 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 closer. Is he going to try and close off the outside line? Yes, he is. That's probably the favoured way. I'd like to go into the first corner, but we get the move done. Back into P2, where we were before the pit stops. We have recovered well. It's only 3 seconds to Viscal. The field has sort of split into smaller chunks now. Our job is now really to bring it home without making too many mistakes, because I would quite like the front wing in one piece. As here comes Richard Vershaw. That's not going to help us with time to Viscal. Has a little stick down the inside line into the hairpin. Fair enough. Had a go. Doesn't get the move done. Just got to bring it home nice and carefully in this one now. Well, we're heading on to the final lap, and sadly, Yuri Vips out of the session. A mechanical failure for him from what was, I think, a disappointing position. I think he was in the second train. He dropped back a little bit. We're not really gaining much on Viscal. We're not really losing much to him either. Vershaw behind. It's the last lap. We're not going to get an overtake. Might as well bring it home nicely here in what's been a fairly decent feature race for us. It really has. P2 at a track where I have struggled. I will admit I have struggled around here. You know, Zendelli now 5 seconds behind. It has been a 3-horse race for the win. But as it was in quali, Viscal wins out here. He's going to finish P1 and take the title fight to us. Whether he's going to go for a fastest lap this lap, I don't think so, actually, because he doesn't seem to be going particularly well when we're taking the slowest line out of Aqua Minerale. Clearly quite possible in a race, as that's us nearly off into the wall. We don't need a broken front wing for the last few corners here, but here we go.
Caution.
Caution, caution, mate. Caution, caution. Don't know whether that's for the stopped car or a very quick Yuri Vips, who's going to win here at Imola. P1 for him, and sorry, Viscal. We finish P2. What a race.
That's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Ferme.
It was a tough race at times, but they've held on to take a great victory for Trident today. Tell me, Davide, what was the key to this success?
I think they kept a cool head. That's why they won today. Smooth, steady, everything bad that happened to them, they handled it calmly and professionally. That's what let them focus on getting the best out everything else. The car, the strategy, they managed to keep out of trouble the whole way around.
Our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations, and it's going to be Trident picking up the winner's trophy. Congratulations to the entire team for coming out on top in that amazing race.
Another fantastic F2 race. They always provide plenty of action, and they certainly didn't fail once again. We finish P2 from third on the grid with the fastest lap. Again, somehow, 1 minute 29, 3:99. I don't know how I do it. I seem to have some really... The average lap time was very similar to Viscal, but then on the fastest lap I put in some absolute bonkers lap there, really pushing. Managed to go really decently. But your winner, Bent Viscal for Trident, a really good, dominant victory. P1 at the grid and P1 at the flag. 25 points for the Dutch driver in 28 minutes of racing action. We finish P2, of course. Another solid result for us. That's 20 points, and we should stay comfortably in the lead in the championship. Then you've got the two MP Motorsport cars, Vershaw leading them, to make it two Dutch drivers on the podium. Dropped down from P2, of course. He lost that earlier on in the race, regained it in the pit stops, and we then regained it right at the dying moments of the Grand Prix. But P3 for Vershaw, a really good result for MP Motorsport. 15 points with Vershaw and 12 with Zendelli, who managed to make it to the end of the race, not DNFing today. The German from P4 to P4, a dominant sort of the rest of the field. It was 3 horses for the victory, and then he led the rest pretty comfortably, actually, in the end. Ahead of Liam Lawson, who moved from P7 up to P5. Good result for the New Zealander. Sorry, Liam. Really good. Decent result. It's not easy, really, to jump up the field that much in these cars, so good to see a solid result for Liam. The two losing out because of that, Enzo Fittipaldi and Oscar Piastri, my teammate. Fittipaldi from P5 to P6. Piastri, P6 to P7. He takes 6 points. Fittipaldi takes 8. They dropped down the order. A shame for my teammate. Needed a really good result today. Can't get it and is dropping away in the Drivers' Championship. P8, Marcus Armstrong. An outstanding result from him. Gained 6 places during the Grand Prix. P14 to P8 to take points for Dams. An absolutely incredible drive from him. 4 points for the team. Really good work. Beckman, P9. The German for Campos Racing got in the points from P11 thanks to DNFs to Theo Poucher and Yuri Vips. He gets in the points. Solid for him, you know. He's certainly just been P11 quite a bit in quali, which meant he hasn't got pole, but he hasn't got, like, in the top 10 to be able to then get pole or get near the top for one of the 2 races or in the middle. So he's been pretty unlucky with his quali. P11's pretty much the worst place to qualify. Well, most annoying place to qualify, not the worst, but most annoying. But points for him, that's 2. And Deleda rounds out the points after a fantastic result in the sprint race. Dominating there. Doesn't dominate today in the feature race, but a solid point for him to take away to add to what he got in the sprint race. Then we've got the 2 Carlins just outside the points. Jehan Daruvla leads Tictum, P11 and 12. Both them moved up a place. Still, though, can't really score any good points. Armstrong's teammate Roy Nissany, P19 to P13. Another 6 places gained. Another outstanding result from a Dams driver. Finishes 14 seconds off the lead. His best lap, pretty decent. Good, solid result from Roy Nissany for Dams. That's P13. Drugovic gained 4 places from start to flag. Highest of the 2 Univertosi Racing cars. They're struggling so far this season. Good to see him gaining some positions. Aitken gained 2, P17 to P15. Still, though, not close enough to the points. Onuzhou, P16 from P15. He is really, really struggling this season. Doesn't have the pace. Neither does Sato, who dropped a place in the race too, despite DNFs. Samaya with P18 from P20 on the grid. Not that bad, considering his quali results. And then Ralph Bostrom, P19 for Campos Racing from 22nd on the grid, with Lungard up next in P20. Of course, you had Samaya, P18, then Bostrom, then Lungard. ART Grand Prix car. Lungard rounds out those who did finish. Phipps did not finish. He had a mechanical failure, but of course it was close enough to the end to register as 2 laps. Poucher also had a mechanical failure. That was after he ended up spinning at the first section of corners. That is your race result then. The important thing is to see what's happened in the driver's standings. So then, we still lead, but Viscal has made inroads throughout the race weekend. He's only 19 points behind. We might get a fight by the end of this season between us and Viscal, and that's certainly what I'm looking forward to. Alessio Deleda drops down to P3 after an outstanding sprint race result. He's 31 points off the lead. Not really in it at the moment, but with 3 race weekends left, anything can happen for HWA Race Labs Italian driver. He's currently got 34 points, with Fittipaldi only 4 behind for Shari Racing System. Going along nicely. Not the best in quali, but it's been taking good, solid results in the sprint races and then feature races. Poucher, despite the DNF, P5 at the moment, 2 points behind Fittipaldi. He's certainly looking good for a P5. My team at Oscar Piastri will certainly fight him, though. He's also got 28, 37 points behind the lead. At the moment, it's a 2-horse race for the championship, I do think. Hopefully, some of these other guys can get into that. Vershaw, 1 point behind for MP Motorsport with his P3 today. 38 points off the lead, but a really solid result to counter some of his less fizzy ones at the start of the season. Liam Lawson moves up to P8 for High Tech Grand Prix, 21 points for him, 44 off the lead. Quite a chunk. He's got quite a lot of work to do, I'll tell you that, does Liam. But a good result today is pulling him a bit closer to the others after some disappointing ones earlier this season. Of course, I think it was heartbreak at Bahrain. David Beckman, P9 for Campos Racing, his teammate, quite a bit further down the order. Beckman, of course, took some points today. He has 19. He's been going along solidly. Just we want to try and catch up to Liam Lawson next time out. Zendelli, the lower of the 2 MP Motorsport drivers, with 18. after some unfortunate results, but got something decent today. He remains P10. Then Jory Vips has dropped down to P11 for High Tech. 14 points for him after another DNF. He's going along all right at the moment. And then Marcus Armstrong scored his first few points of the season today for Dams, and that lifts them off the ground. 12 drivers have scored so far. Daruvula, Sato, Aitken, Tiktum, Lundgaard, Nissany, Drugovic, Manyujo, Samaya, Boschung. Still yet to score. Of course, the team standings, Prima leads by 47 points. It is a chunking lead. 93 points in the championship. We're looking very tasty. You know, we've got me leading it, and then Oscar, the highest placed sort of second driver in a sense, if you look at it like that. You know, the next highest placed second driver. You're looking all the way down to MP Motorsports, Rim Zendelli. So we're doing very nicely as a team. Trident, P2, 47 points behind. That's more than they've actually got. They have 46, 1 point ahead of a very consistent MP Motorsport. It seems to be a bit of Bent Viscal versus MP Motorsport there for P2. Then 10 points behind High Tech Grand Prix, looking pretty solid. Only 1 point ahead of HWA Race Lab. Those two pretty close together in the standings, with Sharu Racing System 4 points behind HWA. ART 2 points behind that. If you look at P4 down to P7, that's very close. That can easily change quickly, and so can P2 and 3. Then a bit further back to Campos Racing in No Man's Land-ish. They're going along nicely, looking solid for P8. Dams, first points of the season, they have 4, with Carlin and Univertosi Racing still yet to score. There are your standings then. That is the results of the feature race. Of course, in the weekend, Viscal took 8 more points than us. He closes in. We finished P2 overall, despite struggling a little bit this weekend for pace. But there we have it. We've done the sprint race, we've done the feature race, and then before that, we of course did quali, but we finished P2 and P2 over on the standings over the weekend. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and catch me next time in the series, where I do believe we move on to Red Bull Ring, if I'm not mistaken. But thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel.